Silvestri was sentenced today not only for the injuries to Jacqueline, but also to the other people in the car. Most of the time, a judge would get the accused to serve those sentences at the same time, but today, Judge Paul Conlon stacked them on top of each other to reflect the horror of what's happened here. I would be surprised, he said, if any member of the community would be able to comprehend the sheer inadequacy of a maximum penalty of 7 years for a criminal offence that involved extinguishing the life of an infant.
You're watching The World from Below, and that was a clip of the sentencing of an offender in New South Wales who as a result of dangerous driving. We're speaking today with Dr Ronli Sifris from Monash University and Rachel Ball from the Human Rights Law Centre about reproductive rights. Access to abortion is a key component of reproductive freedom, but there have also been developments outside of abortion that affect this. A bill called Zoes Law is making its way through the New South Wales Parliament. Zoes Law would amend the Crimes Act to recognise the separate existence of a fetus that is of at least 20 weeks gestation for the purposes of certain offences relating to grievous bodily harm. The definition would have affected the sentencing of the offender referred to in the clip you just saw. The law was drafted in response to a similar incident in 2009 involving a woman who was 32 weeks pregnant and hit by a motor vehicle while crossing the road, killing the fetus. Rachel, is there anything that's concerning to you about Zoes Law?
Well, I think, people will rightly feel a lot of sympathy for the woman in that clip, but the fact is that the law in New South Wales already recognises and allows judges to impose hefty sentences on people when they do cause the death of a fetus. And what's dangerous about this law is that it goes a step further and gives a separate legal personhood to the fetus. And the fact is that it's not possible to do that without at the same time chipping away at the rights of the pregnant woman. And that's what we've seen in jurisdictions around the world that have passed laws like Zoes laws. They've been introduced in these sorts of circumstances and explained as a way to protect women and recognise the rights of pregnant women, but then they've been turned around and used against pregnant women. And there's lots of examples, particularly from the US. One that really jumps out at me as an example of a woman, Alicia Beltram from Wisconsin, and she was pregnant. She told her doctor that she had a history of drug use, and as a result, she was taken in by police, she was handcuffed, she was hauled before a court in shackles where her fetus had a state-appointed lawyer, but she had no legal representation. And in that instance, the judge ordered that she undergo a 78-day substance rehabilitation program. And this is all at a point where Alicia was not taking drugs anymore, and doctors had said that there was no risk to the fetus. So you see in instances like that there are real consequences of changing the existing legal framework where the fetus is seen as part of and giving it a separate legal personhood.
Ronli, how does this sit in the context of international law? Does international law recognise the fetus as a person, and what does it say about the right to abortion in that context?
International law actually says very little about the fetus per se. There are some people who argue that the Convention on the Rights of the Child recognises the rights of the fetus. It's a very, very contentious argument. In my view, the more convincing argument is that while international human rights law clearly does not recognise a standalone right to abortion, the right to abortion can be encapsulated by a number of fundamental international human rights. So, for example, the right to health. When women are denied access to abortion, there are very clear potential health implications of that. So the right to health is clearly relevant when we're talking about the right to abortion. Similarly, the right to privacy, the right to equality. Given that women are the childbearers and in all societies, predominantly the child rearers, there are real equality implications to denying access to abortion. Also, the right to be free from torture and cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment is another right that becomes relevant when we're talking about denial of access to abortion. So I think that even though there clearly isn't a standalone abortion right, it nevertheless falls within a number of established human rights norms.
Rachel, in the lead up to the Victorian state election at the end of November, what can we expect from the major parties in respect of reproductive rights?
Well, there's obviously been a lot of discussion in Victoria about the state of abortion law here, despite us having passed a new law not that long ago. Both of the major parties have indicated that they don't have any plans to change the law in Victoria as it is. It's been less clear, however, how they would react to a private members' bill that did make amendments to existing law. There are a group of individuals and organisations that have sent out surveys to all the candidates in the upcoming election and asked them to indicate how they would respond to a private member's bill, whether they support women's right to choose, whether they support the referral provisions, access zones, those sorts of things. And really what they want to try and find out is whether the candidates' views reflect those of the general public. And we know that 85% of people in Victoria support women's rights to make their own decisions about pregnancy and childbirth. And so the hope is that they would see that reflected in the candidates at the upcoming election as well.
And that's all we have time for on this week's episode and this series of The World from Below. I'd like to thank our guests, Dr Ronli Sifris and Rachel Ball. I'd also like to thank all our crew and producers and our host RMI TV. And of course, a big thanks to Channel 31 for the chance to broadcast. Without community representation, the Australian media lacks an important balance and it provides a platform for unheard voices. We at The World from Below certainly hope that Channel 31 gets the chance to broadcast beyond 2015. You can get involved in the campaign at committocommunitytv.org. You've been watching The World from Below. Thanks for joining us.